We should all just be like Jim.
We should all be like Jim.
Crouch in a corner and hold a flamethrower up to our problems. This is a cursed recording.
So, we watched It, the Terror from Beyond Space. Title was like the vampire.
Somebody out there said, I think Space Vampires is pushing it too far for our audiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's from 1958.
1958.
Yeah. Which is coming towards the end, actually, of that era of... sci-fi really picked up in 1950, 1951. Prior to that, the genre didn't really exist. This is where it starts. And this isn't the beginning, but it's riding the coattails of the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen this movie before.
I'd never even heard of it before we found it.
Nope. Didn't exist for me. Wasn't on my radar.
It was a surprise to find this one and see that it was actually, like, decent.
Yeah.
Very good, decent movie. And just... nobody talks about it. It was apparently very groundbreaking in its special effects for the time.
Yeah.
Which is, you know...
There were some special effects.
We
gotta give it its due. It's the 50s, so you're gonna see strings, you're gonna see things.
Mm-hmm.
But they tried.
They sure did.
I would say one thing I noticed was the scale of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
When they're walking on the outside of the ship, I was like... That ship seems awfully small now, doesn't it? Compared to what it looks like when we go in the inside.
And then when we see the blueprints
I mean, it was just the basic wall.
Just, wall, door,
floor. That's it.
And, like, in the shape of the spaceship, like a child drew it. It was great. This movie is a direct, actual credited influence for the guy who wrote the script for Alien, which you can see.
But yeah, you'd think that would be... That's a raven. No? No, he's still here.
He's on top of the house.
Yeah, he is.
He's on top of the house.
He's yelling about things on top of the house. Brilliant timing. Brilliant timing. This is going to be great. This is the best intro ever. It's working out so well. So well. Do you hear me? So well.
Ow. He bit me.
You're not giving him what he wants.
He bit me. His cat never bites and he just bit me.
Attention.
I just want to talk about the movie.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, where's my phone at?
It's over there. You want it?
Yeah. We're just gonna sit here. This is protracted. So drawn out. This movie. We're gonna get through it. We're gonna get there.
We're on Mars. All right.
Oh yes, that's right. We start with
we
seeing
see the crashed.
Yes. The crashed
spaceship. We see it. It's there. It's broken on the surface of Mars.
And it's a slow pan across, like it's drawn, but it's a slow pan from the crashed spaceship. We're given some narration as we're looking at it.
About what happened.
And eventually we slowly pan our way over to the intact spaceship that also has landed next to it.
Mm-hmm. It sets a good pace for the rest of the movie.
That's exactly how the rest of the movie goes. Is a slow pan. It's appropriate. That's when we go to the White House.
That's when we go to the White House. Get straight up, just the White House.
It's just like, in case you don't know, White House. Mm-hmm. Like, America. Mm-hmm. And then it's inside the White House, presumably, or something.
A big eagle. We see a big eagle next. This is to prove that it's also America.
Yes.
Inside of the building.
Yes. And then we move to the press briefing.
And there's some lady reporters. There's two. There's two.
Good for them.
The 50s? Nice. This movie was made in 58. It takes place in 73. So then we get our briefing, and they all rush out of the room like their heads are on fire.
Because they say that the man is going to be tried for murder.
Yes, the man from the first crash ship. Because the people on that ship died except for him. And so He must have killed them. Obviously, you know, the crashed ship, he obviously killed them.
As we continue to watch the scenes unfold next, I was kind of waiting for the moment where they prove to us that he's killed someone. Yeah, I was waiting. And I never got definitive proof one way or the other.
I know. I mean, I came out of this movie fully believing that he ate all of those 9 people. He killed and ate them.
I was undecided. I didn't go with cannibalism, though they were like well-cleaned skulls.
They were too clean.
But it's recording now?
It seems to be.
Woohoo.
And there's now a thing in my eye. My actual eye. Hold up. No.
This has been a great... It's been recording this whole time.
Fantastic. Hi, folks. Welcome to our show.
Oh, God.
We're shown a skull.
We're shown a skull.
Skull's got a hole in it.
Bullet.
But the important point here is we have seen what happens to the aliens' corpses.
Yeah.
It's not this.
No.
This is something else.
That was a weird noise.
That was also the crow.
Oh,
The
God,
raven.
he's back.
The raven's
Oh,
back.
my God. Captain Van, and he's like, isn't it weird that there's a bullet hole in the skull? And our guy, he's like, oh, well, you know, the monster took him off into the distance and we were all shooting. And you just kind of sit there going, wow, that's a really lame excuse for killing someone.
Also does not cover why it's a clean skull.
No.
No.
This is what I'm saying. He ate those people. By the way, this is the only skull they've found. They've found nothing else of the bodies.
I'm sorry, how did you determine he murdered them then? How do we make that conclusion come about if we have nothing to base it off of? Oh, it's raining now.
It's raining.
Great. It's also now raining.
Cat throws up. We have to move a chair to clean the cat throw up. The raven is cawing loudly. We try to turn the sound back on. It says it has a card error and we have to fix that. You've got something in your eye. The cat won't leave us alone to record.
No.
The raven came back.
Yes.
And now it's raining.
On the metal roof above us, which is not quiet.
Our guy, what was his name?
Carruthers.
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 That's our main character's name?
Ed Carruthers.
Edward Carruthers.
Yes. Slight zip.
I saw a little bit of that chest hair.
Just a little to distinguish. He's different than all the others. Ed Carruthers.
Ed Carruthers, he's our main guy. I care about him the most because he's just wild. And I don't mean like he's wild and crazy. I mean you watch this man and you go, he's possibly a murderer.
One of the first things we learn is that Mr. Carruthers is just wandering freely around the ship.
We are told by both Carruthers in his narration at the beginning of the movie and the press briefing at the White House that this second crew of flight people have gone up to Mars to literally arrest Carruthers for murdering 9 people and bringing him back to Earth so he can be court-martialed. So that's the plan from the start.
Yeah, that's the whole plot. Roll call, please?
Roll call, please, because they do that in the movie. We have Captain Van. He is suspicious of Carruthers.
Yes.
There is Jim, my favorite character besides Carruthers. We have Bob, who I only remember because his name is Bob. Bob's a little bit of a hothead, but he's really worried about his brother. Gino,
Gino
who
is unfortunately
dead.
dead.
We've got another old man. He gets his head bonked, and then he's got bandages, and that's the only reason I can tell him apart from everyone else.
Poor old man.
I don't remember his name. Another dude died.
He was the first dude to die.
He was the first dude to die. I don't remember his name.
He's unimportant.
The 2 women.
There's an older woman.
There's an older woman. Her name's Mary. And then there's the second woman, and her name is Anne, but I won't be calling her Anne because someone gave her the nickname Chicken in the movie. Chicken's cool. First of all, she says that she's divorced, that she had a husband and she divorced him, and that she's not really interested in pursuing a relationship right now, but she's definitely totally hooking up with Van because Van calls her Chicken and touches her hand lovingly in a 50s way.
That's all we need.
But Chicken is now more interested in hooking up with Murder Guy.
Yeah.
Because she touches his hand in a lovingly 50s way. Chicken is cool. She's very independent and she's a work-oriented divorced woman in space. She also made a sandwich for the guys.
She did.
And also can't stop a weakened, delirious, dying man from flipping some switches.
Her and another woman, by the way. It's not just her by herself, even.
It's a weirdly progressive character in a stereotypical role.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So that's all the characters. The monster, obviously, is unnamed. It's actually, besides the people at the White House and a couple of the other crew members, we're introduced to the monster first before Carruthers, who is
Yes.
our main character.
Yes.
We see it all the time, and we see all of it all the time, which
Yeah.
is something, again, they didn't do a lot back then with monster movies or alien movies. Roll call over.
Not sure why we have to do roll call on a contained ship.
I don't know. This ship. It is full of weapons.
It's like mostly just full of weapons and cigarettes.
Yeah, it's cigarettes and weapons. Like,
Both things so good in outer space, by the way.
they had a shelf full of cigarette boxes. I thought it was going to be like some kind of sweet treat or something.
Yeah.
And then he opens the box and he puts the cigarette in his mouth and he's like, hey, 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 hey. And you're like, oh, all of those boxes are cigarettes. And then he gets scared by the monster and he tries to spit out the cigarette because it's so shocking, but it's like stuck to his lips. So he goes like, bleh, bleh. That was Gino, by the way.
That was Gino. Gino was a good guy.
Gino missed women and wanted to smoke.
They shoot all of those guns, by the way.
They shoot all of the grenades, gas grenades, bullets, shotgun bullets, electrocution, radiation, bazooka.
Yes.
They do all of those things to the monster and it doesn't even die.
It looks okay. It might be a little, like, cranky. I mean, science doesn't make any sense here.
At the end of the movie, they figure out that, so it needs a lot of oxygen, this monster. And they paraphrase this, they explain this in the best of their abilities as the small amount of oxygen that's on Mars means that the monster must have really big lungs. Thanks, Carruthers, you are
Not a scientist.
not a scientist.
No one's a scientist here.
No one is a scientist. Hi. Van, our suspicious man, he gets hurt by the monster a little more than halfway through the movie. And he gets infected, and then he gets laid out on a bed for the rest of the movie, except the 2 times he gets up and messes everything up for everybody.
Everyone
by opening
does
up
not. It's not helpful.
the nuclear shields
Yeah, the reactor shields.
that no one ever closed for the rest of the...
That's not important. Don't worry about that part.
And also opening up the space door and letting the monster out, and then dying immediately. But
He's
anyway...
a hero. He's Yeah, he's an American hero.
Something cool of note, first of all, just film-wise, it was actually incredibly spooky.
Yes.
And in a spookier movie, they didn't keep it up for most of the film, unfortunately.
no.
But they did have a really good couple of shots where it was just, chef's kiss. The lighting was so good.
Yes.
It was pitch blacks and singular light sources making odd shapes in places. It was so
Which
pretty.
is just like,
and it was so creepy.
it was the classic lighting that we would expect of film noir. And this is something we do see in sci-fi from this period where they do transition some of those techniques over. These lighting techniques particularly, where we see these hard shapes, these lots of darkness, where we can't see our character. We get full depth of the full scene. This is something that we actually get from German filmmakers that came over after and during World War II.
Okay, but I want to talk about the hand. Yeah, it's our first body.
It's our first person that went missing. We don't remember his name.
He had some kind of a name, like
we saw him.
Wachowski or something.
We saw him, and we immediately went, "This person will die."
Yeah, he was walking around in the dark. Of course he was gonna die. When they eventually discover his body, though, that's the cool part. It's Carruthers. He's leaning up against a vent. And
It's
he's
a
just
big
kind
vent,
of
yeah.
sitting there. And then it's so cool. It actually was very creepy. Oof. Spooks.
It really was.
Besides that vent, we have another important vent scene. And this one's actually more important because of what it eventually led to. So they've discovered the first body, and now they're going into more of the vents to see if the other bodies or the monster is in there. And they go in there, somebody goes in there, it's Bandit Guy.
It's Old
'Cause
Man
this
Bandage.
is where he gets his
It's
bandage.
Old Man Bandage,
This
yeah.
is where he gets his bandage. So Old Man goes in there, he sees Gino's body, but Gino's kind of like moving around and alive still. So he goes to go help him, and then he gets attacked by the monster. And he gets some ketchup on his face, and then they have to put bandages on his face, and that's how he becomes Bandaged Old Man.
Oh no. This was such a good movie. Why does this recording have to be like this?
My point.
Yes.
So he's in the vents. And it's very spooky, actually, to be stuck in this small enclosed vent and you're looking at a body, you're trying to help this person, and then you get attacked by a monster. Spooky, scary. Sound familiar? Alien. There we go. There's my point.
The outside of the ship is actually something that's interesting to look at, and the way that they do the special effects for that is very interesting as well. But first, I just need to say...
Very impressive.
They were very, I don't know, interested in it, proud of it, or just felt the need to remind us that we were still in outer space.
Yeah.
But...
One of those.
But we see that long, slow ship moving through the sky every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes. They used it basically as we're going to transition to a new like area scene. And so every time we get a transition, almost, we get this shot of the ship going slowly through the sky.
It's the same shot every time as well.
It is the exact same. That said, even though I could have had like maybe 5 less shots of the outside of the ship going slowly through space.
It did prepare us very well for when they actually walked on the side of the ship.
Yeah.
They was sitting there waiting for Batman and Robin to just pass him quickly on a rope. That's what I was waiting for. The shot of them walking on the side of the ship from far away is a little like superimposed thing. And it's really well done for
58.
Yeah.
58.
That's really impressive.
Yep. He's just gonna sit there and stare at us.
Oh my god, that's terrifying.
I know, this whole time, Indy. He's just been sitting there doing that. When people think about monster movies, but also especially sci-fi movies from the 50s, there's a lot of cultural critique of what does it mean, what kind of cultural meanings or anxieties exist within these monster movies and these sci-fi movies. As suggests, there's actually a big piece of sci-fi movies from the 50s where they really were just interested in showing off their developing special effects techniques to show mostly the mastery of Hollywood over cinema. There was a big play here to show not just that their cinema was amazing, but that American cinema was amazing. They needed to, it's not like a space race, but a little bit, it's like, I've come up with the new technique before Germany did, before somebody else did. Like, it's sort of a race to be the people to come up with the newest innovative thing in film to show control and superiority.
So they shoot a bunch of stuff at the monster, they realize they can't defeat the monster, then they figure out the thing about the oxygen, then they're all stuck except for Jim. Jim's downstairs with his blowtorch, but now he's in an airlock, so he's fine. They're all upstairs in their spacesuits, and they're all like, oh no, we're gonna run out of oxygen, and the monster is breaking through the hole because the monster is indestructible. And then Crazy Van, who's gone crazy because of his alien bacteria, opens up the airlock in the room they're in, and the monster breaks through the hatch, and it gets stuck halfway, kind of like a baby, and it just kind of dies. It suffocates. They suffocated to death because they drain all the oxygen from the room. And then the monster dies, and then they close the door. Carruthers checks on Van, and Van is super dead. And then he checks on the monster, and the monster is super dead. Yeah. And then we go back to the White House, and we have a little debriefing, and then the movie ends.
It's exciting, right? Going back to the White House at the end. This is
no idea if they actually made it back.
Oh, I know. We don't get resolution like that. We also don't know, like, I mean, they say that do they even say that they've exonerated Carruthers? They aren't going to try him anymore?
No, that was a fun bit I noticed last night that I didn't talk about with you, was that they never actually said that they weren't still going to court-martial Carruthers when he got back down with the other 6 surviving members of the crew.
Right. We've watched this film where certain members of the crew have decided, it's probably not Carruthers anymore. That does not mean that America thinks that. And that does not actually prove nor deny his guilt.
They accept that it was an alien that has killed the people on this ship, but those other people, that could still totally be Carruthers. And I agree with them. So at the beginning of the movie, everyone is suspicious of Carruthers, except for Chicken, because she's into it. And then the monster shows up, and people start not caring if Carruthers actually killed people or not. Chicken is still into it, and Van is still suspicious of him. And then they start dealing with the monster, and then no one's thinking about if Carruthers killed 9 people.
Nobody cares at that point. There are hints in the movie at certain moments where it's sort of brought back up just in the way that the actor that is playing Carruthers reacts to things.
At one point, Bob, he says something about the terrible monster and how it's so pure evil. How could it kill all of these people? And that we've got a true monster on board the ship. And Carruthers, who is standing next to him, just casually readjusts his belt and looks away like he's not guilty of something. Like, hi, excuse me. That's some good acting there, because it makes me really question if Carruthers really killed those 9 people or not.
Yeah.
The amount of times that Carruthers desperately tries to steer the conversation away from him and the 9 people that are dead, it's very suspicious behavior.
Yeah.
He's real sus.
Yeah.
Internet meme.
At the moment where they go, we have bigger fish to fry than this mass murderer, because inhuman murderer is scary than human murderer, apparently. So let's give the murderer a gun.
Yes.
So in some ways, this film is playing with a lot more sophisticated ideas. I could see how they didn't develop it in this particular movie. They weren't really there. But the psychological thriller that it could have been.
I just had a thought.
Yeah.
When Carruthers sees dead bodies, he doesn't act surprised or shocked like everyone else does.
No, he's not bothered.
But you know when he does act shocked and surprised is when he sees the monster for the first time.
Yeah, yes.
Wednesday.
Yes. I mean, you could also just be kind of like, how did this monster get on this ship? That's surprising.
But he made the claims that it was a monster that came out and killed everyone out on Mars. But it sounded like such a grade school excuse of, well, you know, my dog ate my homework.
Right.
Like, it was that kind of a feel to how he was explaining it.
And it's not outlandish. This one guy, I think it was Gino maybe, he made chemical grenades because he thought they might run into dinosaurs on Mars.
It was jokingly made, but he still made them.
Right. Which, so, I mean, like, this is in the people,
Yeah.
like, there could be monsters here.
Yeah. But when the actual monster shows up for real, he's legitimately surprised.
Yeah.
This is the only man who should not be surprised about the monster.
Right. He should have been like, this makes sense. It's tracking me.
He should have been like, I told you so. But he's not. He's
No.
like, it's a monster.
And it's true. He didn't immediately turn around and go, see, I told you that. He doesn't do that at all.
Which would be a good way for people to be like, he's right, he's not the killer.
And normally in this scenario, you'd think, here's a person who has prior experience with this particular creature. He would tell them a few things about this creature then.
He made up that a monster killed these 9 people he killed as an excuse. And then an actual monster showed up and he was like, what? Wednesday. He killed those 9 people.
Cooperation versus conformity.
Oh, yeah.
So the American economy, Fordism is kind of the economic idea that was happening at that moment in this era that this film is being made in. And it's basically just mass production of stuff and mass consumption of stuff.
Yeah.
And the real concern here with this, as this happens, is the tension of, are we conforming too much? And there was also, as we move away from World War II, there's a lot of political moves that they aren't necessarily socialism, but they feel a little socialist. The worry was the kind of control the government would have and the kind of loss of individualism that would occur because of this. And so there was a real concern over conformity without questioning authority versus the need for cooperation to get the economy back on track. And I think actually this works well for this film. And the way that these characters handle Carruthers, the way that they interact with each other while trying to negotiate this monster. Okay, so Chicken. We like Chicken.
We like Chicken.
We want to think she's progressive. Chicken's got a problem.
Chicken's got a problem.
Chicken is just hot for Carruthers and immediately is on his side. This would be conformity without questioning authority, right? Whereas Captain Van, who is quite suspicious of Carruthers
The whole time.
is willing to still give Carruthers a gun and ask for his help for the sake of cooperation, which is not the same thing as conformity without questioning authority. There is another layer here between Carruthers and the alien. And it also has to do with the fact that we see both of these characters pretty quickly together. We actually see the alien first, as you said, and then we see Carruthers. But there is a connection here. The connection is not just it's either Carruthers or the alien that killed these people, although they are connected in that way. If we think at a metaphorical level, and we look at this monster, we could say a lot of different things about this monster. We could talk, I mean, if you were to talk to some scholars, they would probably go ahead and talk about Cold War tensions, the Red Scare, and they wouldn't be super off base. There are certain things that point to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But you really also could look at the way that the monster and the man are connected, the parallels that we could think about between, like, well, is it the monster that kills all the people, or is it Carruthers that kills all the people? And what if the answer is it's both because they're the same person? That might sound a little outlandish because the reality of the movie doesn't suggest that for us. There's no like weird dream states or anything. But if we look at the metaphorical level of it, it's
an animal, this alien. We don't have the scientist character to come in and be kind of awed by this alien creature. Like, I must study it. It's so amazing. And the other thing is, it just sort of crept on board like a rat.
Like a raccoon. Like
Or
a raccoon.
or something. It's very animal looking. Very like a pig nose and weird stuff happening. But it looks very animalistic. And it makes animal sounds. It doesn't make like a language sound. It makes like an animal roaring sound. What's interesting about this particular alien is it's not like it has futuristic technology and has come to the people. It's just sort of here with us. Normally we see aliens as this promise of like interesting tech and development and evolution, and this is the opposite of that. This is like a swamp creature that's come aboard, basically. It's the animalistic side of a human, basically, because it is humanoid. It has some intelligence. It just can't, and all it wants to do is sort of consume and kill. This is the darker side that was the killer part of Carruthers on board with us, a sort of Jekyll and Hyde scenario. This creature is a manifestation of some inner impulse of Carruthers.
Which would really explain a lot.
This isn't to say that it tracks throughout the whole film. Like, it does die at the end. It does die at the end. The metaphor has kind of gone away, but also the suspicion has kind of fallen away at that point, too. But we still have the worry, at least if any audience member is paying attention. This is kind of so this is relating back in some ways to Cold War stuff, because what if he is an agent for America who is turned and then comes back to us?
Yeah, it's the terror from space, from the red planet, it's a red terror from the red planet.
The red scare. Yeah, it's not subtle. It's trying really hard to push this into our faces. I think what's interesting is there's two parts to this, and one is very much blatant propaganda. At the same time, the psychological thriller aspects of here is a person who we're trying to work our way through the lies, the manipulation, the sort of interior issues, and here's a physical manifestation of the primal instincts driving them. And if we want to, we can talk about it and say it's like, you know, a Freudian id character brought to life, which I guess I will tell you more about back there. Okay, I'm just going to try. Classical Freudian psychoanalysis investigates the possible unconscious side of the mind. Sigmund Freud specifically claims that there are 3 sections within the mind, parts of which are made up of this unconscious and parts of which work within the consciousness itself. There are the superego, the ego, and the id. And these 3 different sections of the mind in psychoanalysis work together. The superego functions as the social constraints, the side of the mind that reminds you that murder is bad, litter is not a good thing, and helping your neighbor is generally well received. The superego considers the social conventions and actively works to add those elements into the mediator, which is the ego. On the opposite side of this is the id, and the id functions solely as primal instincts, basic needs, those things that we feel we desire or want. Things like food, love, shelter, basic needs. And it also informs the ego. It brings these needs and desires and wants, attractions up into the surface of the ego. And the ego works as the mediator between these two forces. One side says, I'm really hungry. That would be the id. And the superego comes back and says, but stealing food is wrong. And because of this interaction, the ego makes the choice that we should probably pay for that sandwich. These forces, whether we like them or not, whether we agree with them in their classical definition or not, I think we can see that the id is at work in the metaphorical analysis of the alien in this movie. So when we think of this alien, we could consider that it is the primal id instincts of Carruthers physically manifested within the film. It is a single drive, that of domination, satiation of a desire or a need. Likely for Carruthers, it's some basic, non-comprehensible, not socially acceptable desire to kill. And that is all that the alien does. We actually don't see it doing anything else. Freud was convinced that these drives, these basic primal desires, in fact, are more controlling of humans than we like to believe they are. We think that they are something that we can repress to the benefit of the superego, which is trying to work with society's expectations. Freud ultimately believes that this isn't something we have control over, that humans are, at the end of the day, they are destructive, dangerous. They have the thanatos drive where they want to self-destruct, basically. That's Freud. Freud is pessimistic for lots of different reasons. If we were to take this analysis a step further, we would say this film suggests, on one level, that we can dominate, we can crush the id. It seems like it's undefeatable, but in fact, at the end of the day, we can finally control it. But if it's just a manifestation of Carruthers' primal instincts, we know that at the end, he leaves this scenario. He is intact. And that basic drive that's so frightening in this film is still within him somewhere. There's some tension here at the end because we don't get resolution. What happens to Carruthers? Is he on trial? Does he get court-martialed or not? And this instability of the self, of do we have control over the base instincts, or are they going to just kind of hauntingly be present below the surface at all times? This is something that the film is playing with.
Guys, he's just so sci-fi. He's leaving. Or he's staying. I don't know. He's a boy beard.
Take the notebook.
There's so many things have happened. By the way, our father has just driven up in the truck, if you hear that. It's The Terror from Beyond Space, 1958.
Great.
We did it.
Yes, we did
Yay.
it. I just want to pick Sai up and say, here it does Sai. He does here. He's Sai.
We did it.
Oh, you good boy.
He's good boy.
Yeah, you good boy.
He says he don't want this.
He's okay.
What's the word? I forgot the word.
Yeah,
The alien movie that we're gonna review next. What is it when it's
Well, it'd be a remake. The Alien would be
No,
the remake.
it's not remake. It's a, for the script, it was a influence. There we go. That's the word I was looking for Wednesday. Did you see the motion? This meant influence, by the way. This is influence. Because it's from the one thing and it influences the other.
I mean, in the future. You're just trying to... Yes,
Motions that make the words, Wednesday.
I stared blankly off into space trying to even get there.
No.
Oh, good. Now there's horses. It started raining more, too, by the way.
Is it Friday the 13th? It's not.
It's Thursday the
11th of March. You're a man named Bob in space. I'm sorry. In a sci-fi movie, you're not important. I am sorry.
It's not gonna work.
You're basically a red shirt. I am sorry. I really liked this movie, but thinking about it makes my brain hurt. I am running circles around myself trying to explain how this worked and just going,
It doesn't work.
so I would try to big brain it and it wouldn't work afterwards because then they would say that it has big lungs to breathe the small air. What we're trying to say is we really liked this movie.
I actually really like this movie.
But this is the dumbest crew of astronauts I've ever seen.
They're just not astronauts. They are like, hey, Bob from the market, you want to go on a space trip?
We gotta go arrest somebody on Mars.
And Bob's like, that sounds great. I'm excited. Do we get to use handcuffs?
Can I bring my brother?
Bob's like, Gino wants to come with too. Can we take Gino? And then they're like, yeah, bring Gino. He's handy.